All right. So here we are. Oh my gosh. Now I got these new. How funny is this now? I've got this new bookmark, but amongst all my other bookmarks, I can't find it now. Here we go. All right. We're on page 265 of Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play. And we got three more people coming. Just a second here. All right. So we are on Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play. And we're studying the life of Sri Sarada Devi, who was Ramakrishna's first disciple and came to be recognized as an incarnation of the Divine Mother, the Universal Mother, because of her meekness and her humility. It wasn't obvious to everybody until later in her life that she was who she was. Um, of course, she would never say it. But several people had experiences with her that later they kind of pooled their information. They're like, my gosh. And then Ramakrishna also, of course, uh, uh, made no bones about it, but also put her in charge of really the early days of the order. That she was the one that helped the Ramakrishna order start and was there for advice. And it was she who gave Vivekananda permission to come to the United States, and that they would not make any decisions in the early days of the order without the Divine Mother's approval. And so she was very revered, highly respected during her life. And so, since we always think of the incarnation of God as being male, which really there's no reason for that, because in Hinduism, certainly it's said that every time God incarnates, he incarnates both as male and female. And so all the incarnations have their feminine counterpart, but probably for cultural reasons or maybe just flat out prejudice. Who knows? We always pay more attention to the dude instead of the dudette. And so now we're going to try and balance that out. And so we're looking at God as mother. We have that choice of approaching God really in any relationship that's helpful to us, um, whether it's as divine mother or as divine father or brother or even as child or even as lover. So all of these are possible ways of approaching the divine. And it's up to you with whatever relationship you are most comfortable with. God will appear to you as your own highest ideal of love. And so it's your devotion that gives the divine form. Ramakrishna says that of course, it's metaphoric, but he says that it's the cooling effect of devotion that freezes the formless divine, the formless water of God, into ice, into a solid form. And so that form, since he exists both with form and without form, she will appear to you in the way that is uh, most loving to you, the way that will give you the highest idea and experience of divine love. All right, so we're on page 265 on the section called Swami Trigunatitananda, and he was one of the early swamis that was actually sent to the center in San Francisco. He's the builder of the old temple that you can find there. That it's a big birthday cake of a building. It's got his idea when building that temple is that it should represent all the temples around the world. So it's a real mishmash uh, of architectural styles to represent universal religion, the oneness of religions. So Swami Chugunatitananda. After Swami Yogananda's passing, Swami Trigunatitananda took charge of Holy Mother's physical needs in addition to editing the Udbodhan journal. He served her from 1899 until he left for America in 1902. His zeal in serving her sometimes appeared almost obsessive. In October 1899, Holy Mother was going to Jairambati in a bullock cart via Burdwan. Of course, Jairambati is where she grew up. It was past midnight. Trigunatitananda was walking in front of the cart as her bodyguard, with a heavy stick on his shoulder. Suddenly, he saw a wide breach in the road made by a flood. At once, he realized that the cart would either be overturned or would receive a terrific jolt, not only disturbing the mother's sleep, but possibly injuring her. Immediately, he laid his body down in the breach and asked the driver to continue over him. Wow. To continue over him. Fortunately, Holy Mother awoke before this happened. She took in the situation and rebuked her disciple for his rashness. Trigunatita's love for her and his faith in Holy Mother was phenomenal. Once Yoganma asked the Swami to buy some hot chilies for Holy Mother. In his eagerness to get the hottest chilies possible, he walked through many markets from Bug Bazaar to Bara Bazaar and a distance of 4 miles, tasting all of the hot chilies until his tongue became red and swollen. At last, he found the hottest ones at Bara Bazaar and brought them to the Holy Mother. When the Holy Mother heard about this, she said, "What a devotion to the Guru." Later, when Trigunatita went to America, he sent money regularly for Holy Mother's personal service. So you get this idea, you get a vision here of what it is to honor your guru. That you're willing to lay yourself down into a muddy rut in the road and have the wagon roll over you so as to not discomfort your guru. It's a wonder. It's a lovely story, actually. One, because it's hilarious. But two, it just shows you he had no concern about his own self in that. I mean, a bullock cart with people on it, especially with those narrow wooden wheels, could do some damage rolling over you in a rut. And so his willingness to do that is quite touching. And the fact that Holy Mother wouldn't let him and that he got a scolding out of it is also funny. But
Maharaj,
yes,
isn't
Mom.
Swami Trigunatitananda, who was at San Francisco?
Yes. Yes, he was. He was sent there by Vivekananda and he built the old temple down at the bottom of the hill. So, yes, definitely he was. But that story is very much what I really enjoy about all of these early saints, these early sages. They all had such a deep devotion for the divine, for God, and a very deep love for each other. Just a real commitment to the welfare of each other and such a high regard for each other. You never hear them speaking poorly of one another. They're always just in a wonderful what a wonderfully encouraging and loving mood toward each other. Swami Sharadananda. Once, when the master's disciples were young, Sharat, later Sharadananda, these Anandas are, of course, their monastic names after they took their vows. So Sharadananda said to Yogan, who became Yogananda, "I do not always understand what Naran, later Vivekananda, means. He talks about many things. Whenever he speaks about something, he does it with such emphasis that all his other statements become practically meaningless." But don't we have that experience when you read Swamiji? Whenever he's talking about bhakti yoga, he is so zealous and so fully into bhakti yoga that he'll say things that place bhakti yoga above all of the other yogas, and just totally just jump in there. And then when he talks about jnana yoga, he'll do that for jnana yoga. And so when you read these different things, you have to read his statements and you have to put them into their category from the perspective of which he was speaking before you understand them, because some of them are contradictory. And I don't think that was accidental on his part. It's that each of those yogas is a set of scaffolding for reaching the divine. The scaffolding is not the point. The scaffolding is not the truth. The scaffolding is the means of realization. And so all of these different yogas have their own scaffolding for bringing a person of that disposition to their highest ideal. And they may not line up. One may say something that is contradictory to one of the others, because the yoga itself is not the point. The yoga is the vehicle. Religion is not the point of spiritual life. Knowing God, seeing God, realization, this is the point of spiritual life. And so even though we've made the mistake of thinking that there are multiple religions in the world, and we've done that because we've seen some of these disparities and differences. It's time now for the world and for us to kind of grow up a bit and understand the unity of love that ties all of these what we've called different religions into a single religion with different scaffoldings available for people of different dispositions, different life situations, because it is not unity by sameness. It's not that we all have to become one religion, one set of scaffolding. It's a unity of love, the unity that Jesus prays about in the New Testament in the book of Matthew when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane. I think it's the last prayer that he prays on earth. He says in there, that they may know that they are one, even as you and I are one, me and you and they in me. And let love be the cord that binds us together. Not that we all believe the same thing, not that we're all thinking the same thing, but that we all have this binding cord of love that ties us into a unity, even though we are extremely diverse, all of us in our lives. And that wasn't a mistake of the divine. To the divine is infinite. God is infinite, and her manifestations are infinite. And each one of us is a manifestation of God. Each one of us is a story of love. It's one of my favorite thoughts that enjoyed having at some point when the first time I don't remember. But that notion that like each one of us is a story of love from our birth to our death. We make all of our decisions by what we love or what we desire, what we want, what we're looking for. So what we like is the thing that's always determining our decisions. And this moment in our life, as we mentioned a couple of classes ago, is the sum of our desires. This moment as we experience it is the sum of our desires. And so if you're not happy in this moment, reconsider your desires. and and if you've actually been fooled into thinking you're happy in this moment, reconsider your desires anyway. But this notion that every one of us is an aspect of love. We're a story of love when that love is projected through our particular mind. My life is what love looks like, what pure love looks like when it's projected through this mind. And that is what has led me through my life. And each one of us is one of those stories. So when you collect all of us as a bunch of flowers, it's getting too sentimental, a big field of flowers, all of us get picked. When you take all of the stories of love together, all of us together become the most complete incarnation of God. We become the most complete incarnation of God, and so to just to enjoy that and understand this unity of religion is not going to come through unity of philosophy or a unity of dogma or doctrine, that the unity of religion comes because the one most important thing in all of them is to love one another, to love the divine in each other, that this is our number one most important thing. And if we would begin to practice that as religious people, as spiritual people, as whatever kind of people we want to call ourselves, that would become the medallion. That's actually in the life of Jesus. That's he says. He said, "They'll know you are my disciples by your love." You know, and so that's the Avatar's teaching to all of us. They'll know They'll know you by your love. And so this should be our primary attribute when somebody sees us, when somebody looks at us. They're like, oh yeah, that dude, he is so nice. Oh, that woman, oh my God, I love her. She's so kind. So this should be the way people talk about us in the other room. All right, so Vivekananda, Sharadananda is complaining. He talks about so many things, and whenever he speaks about something, he does it with such emphasis that all his other statements become practically meaningless. Yogan replied, let me tell you something, Sharat. You stick to mother. Whatever she says is right. When Swami Chagunatitananda left for America on the 27th of September 1902, Sharadananda took over the responsibility for Holy Mother and continued serving her until she passed away in 1920. Many years earlier, at Dakshineshwar, Ramakrishna one day sat upon Sharadananda's lap in an ecstatic mood. He later explained to the curious devotees, I was testing to see how much weight he could bear. The young disciple passed his guru's test. In later years, despite his heavy responsibilities as general secretary of the Ramakrishna order, he took charge of Holy Mother's day-to-day affairs. Sharadananda often referred to himself as the gatekeeper of her Calcutta home. He took responsibility for the mother's food and lodging, looked after her health and managed her household, cared for her relatives, handled her financial needs, directed her visitors and devotees, and arranged for her travels. He also built a home for her in Calcutta. So all of that while being president of the Ramakrishna order as it was beginning. So when Ramakrishna said he was testing how much weight he could bear, it was metaphorical. If he could bear him sitting in his lap, which is a wonderful way to think about it, that to Thakur, service to him was like him sitting in your lap, you know. So this is how intimate he considers that service of you toward him as your beloved, as your divine ideal, in whatever form you worship him, not necessarily as Ramakrishna. You can worship Ramakrishna as Buddha or as Jesus or as Rama, as any of them. You can change all those names around because it's the same entity, the same God, the same beloved who keeps putting on different party outfits, as it were, and coming down to spend time with us, to give us an idea of a more perfect love, of a more perfect compassion. What does it look like to be an egoless person? What does it look like to be someone who thinks only of the welfare of others, above and beyond themselves? So here we see Trigundatita or Sharadananda, Trigunatita taking care of all of these things, and passing the master's test for how much weight he could take in his lap when the master sat there. While Holy Mother was in Jairambati, he sometimes traveled there to manage her finances or to care for her when she was ill. He also settled the complicated problems of her family members and had a home built for her in Jairambati where she could move about freely. Like a dutiful and dependable son, Sharadananda tried his utmost to make Holy Mother happy and comfortable. To him, the mother came first, before everything else in this world. In fact, his life is a glowing example of his complete dedication to service. That this is the ideal of what Ramakrishna is talking about, and that intimacy. That our love for the divine is what motivates our service to that divinity in all things. And nothing is separate from that divinity. There's a story when Holy Mother, one of the brahmacharis, was sweeping her room. And when he finished sweeping her room, he just kind of casually tossed the broom into the closet and it fell on the floor. And Holy Mother scolded him, said, what is this? Such disrespect. Everything in this house is a member of our family. Everything gets treated with respect, whether it's a broom or whether it's the dog in the corner or whether it's each other, to have this ideal about everything that you do, to it's part of our practice actually, is to see everything as divine until we do see everything as divine, which will happen at one point when the mind reaches that level of purity, of clarity. We'll recognize the divinity in all things. Ramakrishna uh, says it's very much like a young boy, who's trying to catch a grasshopper and the wind is blowing and shaking the leaves and making a noise and it's disturbing the grasshopper. So the young boy turns to the leaves and goes, "Shh, I'm trying to catch the grasshopper." And Ramakrishna loved that. He said, "See, we naturally know as children, we know the divinity of all things. We know the life in everything. And so we should return to that as adults. And everything in our purveyance, everything around us is put there as a manifestation of the divine and should be treated as such. And when we start seeing the world that way, when we start seeing each other that way, that's when the real fun begins, because everything becomes a teacher. Everything becomes an intimate, uh, what would you say, co-conspirator in your realization. Everything begins to point at your beloved and to show you the way to get there. Holy Mother once said, "I shall be able to live in Calcutta as long as Sharat is there. I do not see anyone who can be responsible for me after that. Sharat can, in every respect. He is the man to bear my burden," which is why he got that name, Sharadananda. His monastic name is Holy Mother's name with Ananda. Someone asked, "What about Swami Premananda?" "No, he can't do it." "But he runs Bellarmont." "Well, that may be, but looking after women is a bother. He can only keep an eye on me from a distance." From 1902, and that little bit there about the men and the women thing, what she's saying there is how pure Sharadananda's mind was. That for him there would never be an ill thought in his mind from serving the women. Whereas, the suggestion here at some level is Premananda, very pure soul. I'm not saying he was an impure soul at all, but Mother sees, that for him, his discipline of not being with women was a necessary practice for him, or a better practice for him. And so she wouldn't bring his service across the line. She saw that no, he should be there doing his work there. I can depend on Sharadananda here. So each one of us, what we can gather from that is perfect in our own place. That the divine has your life mapped out for you as it is, because it is the best life for you. And it is the best life for you to realize the divine in yourself and in others. And so always understand that this moment as it is not to be resisted, is not to be pushed against. It's to be accepted. And that we have to do the work inside to know who we are and what we are, so that we can realize the perfection of God in this moment in our relationship with her. From 1902 to 1920, Sharadananda's life was intertwined with Holy Mother's. This period is recorded in detail in this book, but here we shall record some significant events that affected Sharadananda directly. When Sharadananda began looking after Holy Mother, he was upset that she had no place of her own in Calcutta or in Jairambati. In Calcutta, she lived either in a rented house, or when the disciples could not find a suitable house for her, in a devotee's home. She was very shy, so it was very difficult to be a guest in a household or devotee's house, and to witness their family quarrels and their frivolous activities, or to join them in sickness and grief. Moreover, she suffered from malaria from time to time and could not bear the thought of becoming a burden to others. Regardless of whether she stayed with the devotee's family or in a rented house, it was inconvenient for her to be frequently changing lodgings. Realizing Holy Mother's uncomfortable situation, Sharadananda was determined to build a permanent home for her in Calcutta. Well, you see the size of their devotion. I mean, Nothing was beyond the pale. It's like, oh, we should get Ma a house, a place of her own. Oh, you know, we should make sure this wagon doesn't tip over. Her mother doesn't get woken up. Let me lay my body down. That there was just no question. They were so in love with their ideals, so fully committed, not in that type A, I'm committed kind of way, but in this inspired way, this flowing way, that these actions were completely in harmony with the way that they lived, because their thoughts and their words and their deeds were in unity. Their earnestness and their sincerity was fundamental to their practice, and love was actively and obviously their highest goal in life, to be a loving person to everyone equally, to everything equally. In July 1906, Kedar Chandra Das donated a small piece of land on Gopal Niyogi Lane, Bagbazar, for building a publication house for Udbodhan, the official Bengali journal of the Ramakrishna order. Previously, the publication house was located in Girindralal Basak's house, but that devotee died in 1906. It was suggested that they build a tiled shed on the donated plot, but Sharadananda decided to build a brick house instead. His plan was to use the first floor for the publication office with a shrine to the master, and the second floor as the living quarters for Holy Mother and her companions. Toward the end of 1907, depending on the master's grace, Sharadananda undertook responsibility for the building project. The publication fund had 2,700 rupees, which was consumed by the construction of the building's foundation. Sharadananda borrowed a total amount of 5,700 rupees from different devotees, but this was still not enough. Finally, some distinguished devotee came forward to fund the project. The building, known as Udbodhan House, had 10 rooms, 6 on the first floor, 3 on the second floor, and 1 on the third floor. By the end of 1908, the Udbodhan office had moved into its new house. Holy Mother was not in Bagbazar for the opening ceremony of the Udbodhan house. In 1908, she went to Karmarpur to attend the festival celebrating the anniversary of Ramakrishna's birth, arranged by Swami Yogavinod of Kankurgachi, a disciple of Ramachandra Datta. So you see this, all of them working together to build this house. It cost quite a bit of money back then. I mean, we're talking a lot of money. I mean, Ramakrishna, I think he made what, something like 7 rupees a month or something. Anyway, it was a tiny amount of money. And so to be talking in thousands here to build Holy Mother a home, it's quite an undertaking. Following the festival, she went to Jairambati, where she lived with her brother's joint family. Their mother, Shyama Sundari, had died in 1906, and Holy Mother had become her brother's guardian. By the late 1908, her brothers had grown and were married, and they had begun to quarrel over their share of the family property. They had tremendous respect for Sharadananda, so Holy Mother asked him to help divide up their inheritance. On the 23rd of March, 1909, Sharadananda left for Jairambati with Yogin Ma, Golap Ma, and Brahmachari Gyanananda, later Swami Bhumananda, to fulfill Holy Mother's request. The train reached Vishnupur in the afternoon. They left for Jairambati that evening in 2 bullock carts, arriving the next day before noon. Sharadananda bowed down to the mother, and she blessed him by touching his head and chin. Holy Mother was extremely busy in Jairambati. Apart from her daily duties, she cooked a couple of dishes for Sharadananda and the others. In the evening, Sharadananda talked to the villagers about the master and spiritual life. He knew that arbitration takes time, so he carried Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga with him to edit. Wow, so even there, yeah, there's so much activity going on, in these beginning days of the order. It's really impressive that all of them stayed such spiritual giants and yet accomplished so much without getting caught up in it. There's two ways to work. One is in dedicated service to the divine in everything that you do, right? That's karma yoga, to not see the results of the work that you do as being for yourself, but offering all the results of the work to God, to the beloved, you know. And in that practice, then all of the work of your day is not a distraction from your spiritual life. It becomes part of your practice. It becomes part of what you are, an expression of your divine nature. In the evening, Sharadananda talked to the villagers about the master. He knew arbitration takes time, so he carried Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga with him to edit. Three arbitrators, Swami Sharadananda, Sharada Prasad Chattopadhyaya of Tajpur, and Shambhu Chandra Roy of Jipta, were selected with the approval of Holy Mother's brothers. Kedarnath Datta of Goalpara, later Swami Keshavananda, came to measure the family homestead and farmland. Swami Bhumananda recalled, "It took several days to measure the dwelling places and the farmlands. All the documents were in Uncle Kali's possession. Uncle Prasanna wanted to see those documents, but Uncle Kali would not share them." So these are Holy Mother's brothers. One day, Sharat Maharaj went to Kali's house to hand out the documents according to the distribution of the property. He secretly told me to guard the documents because he knew the nature of the mother's brothers. Sharat Maharaj sat on the mat on Kali's veranda, and I stood behind Prasanna. Kali opened the iron safe and brought out all the documents, placing them in front of Maharaj. He began to scrutinize the documents. Meanwhile, Yogan Ma said, "Sharat, the mother wants to talk to you." Immediately, Maharaj got up and told Prasanna, "Uncle, do not touch these documents. I shall check them when I come back." Maharaj gave me a look and I understood what he meant. As soon as Maharaj left, Prasanna began to quarrel with Kali. Prasanna jumped up and grabbed the documents. I stopped him from leaving, but the brothers, they began to pull at the documents. Sharat Maharaj heard the noise and returned. Prasanna placed the documents in front of him. Finally, Sharat Maharaj distributed the documents. Later, Sharat Maharaj told us, "Look at us. Some are monks of 25 years and some of 30 years. We become extremely angry for a little tiny offense. Now look at the mother, how she is forbearing all of these things. Faced by her brother's erratic behavior, the mother remains calm, serene, and unperturbed." It's it's really beautiful that they put this in here. First of all, they showed the faults as well as the strengths, and it's really a lesson for us, because this is Holy Mother's family fighting over property when the parents have passed, and Holy Mother being there and just never being perturbed by that. She always, she was remembered and noted for being so calm and for being so equanimical in her management of herself, that she didn't get called, that she didn't get, pulled in to that kind of energy. So here these boys are fighting over these documents, no doubt, wanting each of them to get the best share of the property. And there's Holy Mother just calmly watching, you know, sitting there very patiently understanding, not judging them, not getting upset with them, not getting angry for this display of selfishness, but just carrying on. So this is for us to learn. Don't get caught up in the things that are being done. You know, this is the importance that we always talk about, that inner shrine that we have in the heart. And it's the importance of our practice to become established in that inner shrine so that these things don't pull at us, so that these things don't get us caught up. For a person of a deep spirituality, that inner shrine is more real than the world outside is to them. that the things that happen outside really don't have much of an effect on their inner space, on who they are, because they're so well established in the presence of that divine love in the shrine of the heart, the cave of the heart, as St. John of the Cross calls it. And so, for each of us in our practice, going to the heart and sitting there in meditation in the presence, uh, that's very important because that's how we become what we are. That's how we begin manifesting our nature. It's from that space that we live. It's from that space that the energies of love and kindness, compassion, forgiveness, strength, focus, it's from that space that all of that emanates, not from up here, not from calculated moves of how to be loving, not from calculated actions of imitation so that, how we can manage things in a superficial way. No, we have to let this life die. The life of the ego is in the mind, is in the head. But the life of the saint, the light of the life of a spiritual seeker, comes from the shrine of the heart, and it's from that space that we act and that we are inspired to move in this world, not through calculated efforts and plans of the mind, but through a spontaneous manifestation of our nature as divine love, as divine presence. That's where we are activated from, and that's where we move from. The arbitrators discussed the whole affair for many days and finally settled the matter. It was decided that the property and the legal documents would be divided among the brothers. According to the local law of the time, sons inherited their father's property, but daughters inherit their husband's property. So, as she lived with her parents and brothers in Jairambati even after her marriage, Holy Mother had her own cottage. So Sharada Babu asked her which of her brother's households she would prefer to live in. She wanted to be sure that her cottage was allotted to the brother whom she preferred, or he wanted that. Holy Mother had intense renunciation, and she said that she would live in another person's household like a snake lives in a rat's hole. When Sharada Babu insisted on a decision, she replied, "Some days I shall live in Prasanna's house, and some days I'll live in Kali's." Sharada Babu was prudent, and he knew the nature of her brothers. He put Holy Mother's cottage in Prasanna's share of the family estate. The documents were executed and duly registered in the court of Kotalpur. When the brothers took possession of their respective shares, Holy Mother was greatly relieved. Years later, when the number of Holy Mother's devotees began to grow, Sharadananda had another house built in 1916 for Holy Mother in Jairambati. Right. So again, even there, Mother not being willing to stand up for anything me or mine oriented. Right. That is what gives us a disturbed mind. And it's because Mother had minimized the sense of me and mine in her mind. It was that for that reason that she was able to stay so impartial and to be so unperturbed while these decisions were being made. And while everybody else was fighting, she was able to sit there and maintain her peace of mind, her inner peace, her composure. On Friday, the 21st of May, 1909, Holy Mother left Jairambati for Calcutta via Vishnupur. She was then 56 years old. 4 bullock carts were hired. My goodness. Can you imagine traveling by bullock cart? Well, I guess most of you have to imagine being 50 something, but traveling by bullock cart in older age like that's quite something. She was then 56 years old. 4 bullock carts were hired, one for Holy Mother and her 2 nieces, Radu and Maku, one for Yogan Ma and Golap Ma, and one for Sharadananda, and one for Brahmachari Gyanananda, and a devotee from Jairambati named Ashutosh. The party stopped briefly at Kualpara in the afternoon and then resumed their journey in the evening. At 10 o'clock, they bought some food from a shop in Kotalpur for supper and ate it on the veranda of the Shiva temple. The party reached an inn at Jaipur in the morning. They had an early lunch, rested, and then continued to the Vishnupur railway station that evening. Holy Mother and her women companions boarded an interclass car. Sharadananda and the others traveled third class. They reached Calcutta the next morning. On Sunday, the 23rd, it's funny to actually to think about this. I mean, this this overnight, all day traveling, it just shows you how big, how small the world's gotten these days. Nowadays we just jump in a taxi and ride down to Jairambati in an hour or two, and then up to Karmapa. You can see all of these places in a single day now if you had to. But back then, going by bullock cart, and you're talking about an all night, all day journey, staying in inns and having to do all this food. And it's amazing because they moved around in those circles quite a bit. On Sunday, the 23rd of May, 1909, Holy Mother entered her new living quarters in Udbodhan House, which is now called Mayar Bari, or Mother's House. Sharananda's joy knew no bounds when he saw that Holy Mother had entered her own home. Although it was not a fancy house, it was very convenient for her to bathe in the Ganges. At that time, there were no huts in front of the house, but only an open field. From the rooftop, Holy Mother could see the domestic cattle grazing in the field. She could see the Ganges to the west, bordered by tall deodar trees. From one particular spot, she could even see the pinnacles of the Dakshineshwar temple, which brought back many sweet memories to her. So you see how much love he had for her. He knew all of this. He had picked this place for this house and set it up in such a way that she could still see Karmarpur or Dakshineshwar, where she lived with Ramakrishna during his life. She could be near the Ganges, which was so precious to her. She identified all of her purity, with the Ganges, and just that that the cattle reminding her of her life in Jairambati, that village life. So just the joy of him watching her, it's like when your parents buy you your car for graduation, or you know, whatever, your stereo for Christmas, and they watch you open it, with such a shared happiness in you getting that gift. See, that's what love does for us. It makes us celebrate each other's successes and celebrate each other's gifts and acquisitions and lives like that. Just no sense of me and mine in there. That our joy is primarily from other people's joy, seeing other people, find and touch beauty in their lives is what brings us to our joy and what brings us to our ecstasies inside, is always seeing that, enjoying that other people get the better thing. A few weeks after arriving at Udbodhan House, Holy Mother contracted chicken pox. The Brahmin priest of the Shitala temple in Bagbazar treated her with naturopathy every day, and she always bowed down to him. One day, an attendant told her not to bow down to such an ordinary priest who might not have a good character. Holy Mother replied, "My child, he is a Brahmin after all. One should have respect for his Brahminical garb. The master did not destroy any rules or customs." You see this? So that's a beautiful ideal there, that even if somebody isn't necessarily respectable, you respect the divine nature in them anyway, in this sense, the garb of being a Brahmin, So you always find, if the person is completely devoid of any respectable element, still it is the divine presence in them, that we can always find that to respect them. We can always find that to serve them, to be kind to them, to not judge them. That we should understand that not just about others, because all of that begins by understanding it about yourself. You are beautiful because of the divine presence in you. You are worthwhile because of the divine presence in you. You are worthy of love and worthy of respect because of the divine nature that was planted in you at your creation, you know. And so to always know that, because that is what the divine beloved sees in us when she looks at us. So this is how we get up and keep going. This is how we go forward when we have made so many mistakes. Sometimes have made the same mistake a billion times. That we are always able to find a respect for ourselves, not based on our accomplishments, not based on our successes or failures, not based on any of our doership, but based on the fact that Mother placed her divine image within us, and that gave us life. And that image is the only jewel that we have. It's the only thing of value that we are. But it is 100% reliable. And you can always sit in that space and find your own beauty, and your own strength and your own inspiration for getting up, having to go through the humility of apologizing to the beloved again, and setting about the work and not getting caught up in guilt and shame and all that other funky stuff that the mind likes to tie us to our ego with, right? So it is the image of God in us that we respect and that we love, first in ourselves. And by seeing it in ourselves, we then slowly begin to recognize it in everybody else. And we work from that space. We live from that space. When Holy Mother had recuperated from her illness, Sharadananda arranged for her sightseeing, and she visited the Parswanath Jain temple and the Kankurgachi Yogadhyana in Calcutta, and Ramrajatala and Navagopal's house in Howrah. Lalit Chattopadhyaya, one of the mother's disciples, provided his horse carriage. Yogan Ma and Golab Ma accompanied her. On the 12th of September 1909, Holy Mother went to see Girish's play Pandav Gaurav at the Minerva Theatre. While watching the play and listening to the song Hara Hara Manomohini, she went into samadhi. On that day, Girish Ghosh performed the role of Kankchuti, an elderly minister of the king. On another occasion, Holy Mother went to hear kirtan at Kiran Dutta's house at Bagbazar. The theme of the kirtan was Radha's separation from Krishna. At the end of the kirtan, which is that, probably everybody knows, kirtan is that singing along devotional songs, kind of generating a wonderful mood or atmosphere of divine love. At the end of the kirtan, Holy Mother went into ecstasy and lost body consciousness. Golapma cautiously held her up and took her to the carriage. After arriving at Udbodhan, an attendant began to repeat, Ma, Ma. Gradually, she regained normal consciousness and replied, Yes, my son. Whoever she was talking to when she said that, I bet he felt that sonship all the way down. That's the words of these holy people because of the integrity and the depth of conviction in everything that they do. When they say something like that, it goes all the way down to the very source of yourself, really much deeper than a word could go, because there's much more being conveyed here than a word. But it's interesting, Holy Mother going to the theater. This is really one of the traditions that Ramakrishna did, because in those days, spiritual people or righteous people or upright people would never go to the theater. Vivekananda says even in his younger day, when he was walking on a street that had a theater, when he'd get to that theater, he'd cross the street and walk on the other side, he was so fastidious about his purity. And so this notion, the theater was this unseemly place for spiritual or upright people to be. And yet the Master and Holy Mother, she carries on the tradition of going to the theater. And, because of that, even nowadays in Calcutta, in every theater, I'm told, The actors and actresses will have a portrait of Ramakrishna or Holy Mother backstage. They've sort of become the representative holy people for actors and actresses in the arts. And also because Ramakrishna had a really deep respect for creative people. He said that if you see excellence in any of the arts, if you see someone who's excellent in singing or excellent in dancing or excellent in performing, he says, know that God is there. That if they gave just a small turn to their mind, they could realize God quickly, because all of the attributes necessary to become excellent in something are the same attributes necessary for growing in spiritual life. That hard work, that constant dedication to the craft and going forward, that and so he honored that and respected that and became an icon for the artistic community there in Calcutta. And so Holy Mother, even as a widow, being willing to go to the theater, and not only that, but to go into ecstasy at the theater, to have samadhi, shows you how much she saw the divine in everything. So she would see this performance on the stage and just would see the divine, would experience the divine, and go into ecstasy. So much so that after it was over, they would have to lead her out of the carriage and try and bring her out of this ecstasy, bring her back down to the normal frame of mind. Golap Ma began to live with Holy Mother in Udbodhan and became her full-time attendant. She and Radu's mother shared a room adjacent to Holy Mother's room. Yogin Ma came twice a day to give the cooked rice and lentils and other cooking supplies from the pantry, and also to help him chop the vegetables. After Vespers in the evenings, Holy Mother sometimes asked Sharadananda to sing some songs. The Swami had a tanpura and drums in his office, which was a small room next to the building's entrance. He played the drums and someone else played the tanpura. He sang some devotional songs, especially on the Divine Mother, to entertain the Mother. The providence sometimes provides difficulties to facilitate its own designs, and Sharadananda experienced this situation. He had borrowed money from the devotees to complete Udbodhan House in Calcutta, but could not pay the interest on the loan. He was embarrassed because he could not keep his word. He had few alternatives, so he decided to write the life of the Master to pay off the loan. With the permission and blessings of Holy Mother, Sharadananda began to write Sri Sri Ramakrishna Lila Prasanga, which has been translated into English as Sri Ramakrishna and His Divine Play. He later described the adverse conditions under which he wrote this Lila Prasanga. Holy Mother was living upstairs along with Radu. I was surrounded by devotees, and I had to keep the accounts also. The burden of the loan for the house was on me. I used to write the Lila Prasanga sitting in a small room downstairs. Then nobody dared to talk to me, as I had no time to chat for a long time. If anybody would ask anything, I would say, be quick, and finish the talk briefly. People would think that I was egotistic. I could not write much about the devotees except Golap Ma and Vivekananda, because there was so much material to write about the Master. When the mind was ready, only then could I write. You see, even that, even that work came out, was inspired. Paying off the loan caused him to write one of the greatest books, really, the the Great Master, or Ramakrishna and His Divine Play, which is a fascinating book, because the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna was written by M, who was a householder. He wasn't one of the monastics. And so there were many times when Ramakrishna was just with his direct disciples, those who became the early monastics. And so this book that he's referencing here, the Great Master, or Sri Ramakrishna and His Divine Play, was written by the monastic disciples and shared the things that he taught to them. And so you get a much a completely different picture of that life, you know. So let's stop there for today.